It was a splendid day on the island of Sodor. Thomas was taking Annie and Clarabel back to the yards. A new engine had arrived and he wanted to say hello. The engine was beautiful, with shiny paintwork and a gleaming brass dome.
Thomas, meet Emily.
Hello.
Hello to you. Emily, collect your coaches, please. You and your driver must learn the line.
Yes, sir, she answered. Thomas was impressed. Later, the only coaches Emily's driver could find were Annie and Clarabel. "These aren't your sort of coaches," he said, "but I suppose they'll do." Annie and Clarabel felt insulted. "How dare he say we'll do?" Clarabel whispered. Emily puffed carefully along the track. "How dare he say we'll do? How dare he say we'll do?" grumbled the coaches. Thomas saw Emily coming down the line, pulling Annie and Clarabel. "Hello, Thomas," Emily called. But Thomas was cross. "Those are my coaches," he muttered. "Give them back." Emily didn't hear Thomas and she went on her way. Then Edward passed. And Percy. When Emily whistled hello, the engines didn't whistle back. Emily couldn't understand why they were so unfriendly. She was upset. Later, Sir Topham Hatt spoke to Thomas.
"I want you to go to the docks to pick up new coaches."
"New coaches? But, sir—"
"Really useful engines don't argue," said Sir Topham Hatt.
Thomas didn't want new coaches. He wanted Annie and Clarabel back. When Oliver saw Emily return to the yard, he was surprised. "Those are Thomas's coaches." "So that's why he looked cross," exclaimed Emily. "I'll go and apologise." "Don't want new coaches, don't want new coaches," chuffed Thomas. Later, Emily was still looking for Thomas when a signalman flagged her down. "Oliver hasn't cleared his signal box," he told Emily's driver. "Please go and see what's wrong." Emily could see that Oliver had broken down on the crossing. Then Emily heard Thomas's whistle. He could see Oliver, and he knew he could never stop in time. Oh! Emily charged towards Oliver, and with a huge effort, pushed him across the tracks. Just in time. Later, Sir Topham Hatt praised Emily.
"Well, John, you were a very brave engine."
"The bravest," chuffed Oliver.
"It gives me great pleasure to present you with 2 new coaches."
"Thank you, sir," replied Emily. "I'm sorry I took Annie and Clarabel." "And I'm sorry I was so cross," replied Thomas. Friends? Friends. Emily loves her coaches and being part of Sir Topham Hatt's railway. The engines on the island of Sodor want to be responsible, reliable, and really useful. They are happiest when Sir Topham Hatt gives them important work to do. James thinks his work is very important indeed. He is proud of his red paint and likes to look clean and smart. One day, Percy puffed to the washdown. "My whistle's clogged." He tried to blow hard to clean it out, but instead blew mud all over Gordon. "Silly," huffed Gordon. Percy was trying not to laugh. "Keep your dirt away from me. I'm collecting the mare today." "I should do that." "Really?" chuckled James. "You'd need a washdown first." "Pah!" snorted Gordon. James just laughed. Soon James had collected the mare and puffed proudly away. "Just look at me, Gordon." "Show off," grunted Gordon. Sir Topham Hatt came to the sheds.
I need an engine to collect the Queen of Sodor.
"Who's the Queen of Sodor?"
A leaky old barge,
replied Sir Topham Hatt.
She needs to go to the workshops. It's dirty work, I'm afraid.
Just then, James shunted into the sheds. This gave Gordon an idea. Is collecting the Queen of Sodor important work too?
Very important work. Do I have a volunteer?
Very important work, exclaimed James. I'll do it.
Then it's settled. She's waiting at the canal.
Thank you, sir, said James. Gordon was delighted. His plan was working. I'm here to collect the Queen of Sodor, announced James. There she is, said the yard manager. James was furious. That old tub! Gordon tricked me. He wants me to get dirty. I'll show him. A shiny engine like me never gets dirty. Soon, James set off with the Queen of Sodor. It was a long journey to the workshops. Shiny and clean, puffed James. Then there was trouble. The tall funnel of the old barge crashed through a pipe. James was sure he'd get covered in sludge, but he didn't. Shiny and clean, he declared again. The workmen soon cleared the mess, and then James was on his way. He arrived safe and sound, pleased that the dirty work was done. When James returned to the sheds, he was very proud of himself. How did you manage to stay so clean? I have to stay clean, boasted James, in case there's important work to do. Just then, Percy returned from the quarry. My whistle is clogged again. Watch out, James. Dust went everywhere. I did warn you. You'll need a washdown now, teased Thomas. Good, snorted James. It will make me readier than ever. I'm such a splendid engine. It was the end of a busy day. The engines had been working hard. They were pleased and proud. Except Henry. He was feeling ill. "What's the matter with you, Henry?" Thomas asked.
My boiler's grumbling.
"Maybe it's grumbling at you,"
That's not funny,
hissed Henry.
you just don't care.
But Emily saw that Henry was leaving a puddle of water behind. She was worried. The next morning, the Fat Controller arrived.
Thomas, Henry, Percy, I want you to collect some trucks and take them to the docks.
"Yes, sir," cried Thomas and Percy. Henry watched the engines puff away. He didn't feel well. Useful engines don't complain. He was leaving water everywhere as he chuffed towards the coaling plant. When Emily saw this, she was more worried than ever. Then Thomas and Percy overtook Henry.
Hurry up, Henry!
Percy tooted. "I can't go any faster," Henry chuffed miserably.
You're just being lazy.
Teased Thomas. By the time Thomas and Percy reached the coaling plant, they had a naughty plan. "Please, sir, Henry wants to take more trucks."
He is bigger,
added Percy. The yard manager agreed. Meanwhile, Emily was talking to the Fat Controller. "Oh, I'm worried about Henry."
Perhaps his tubes are leaking,
replied the Fat Controller.
You'd better check.
By the time Henry reached the coaling plant, Thomas and Percy had already left. "Why did Thomas and Percy leave me so many trucks?" moaned Henry. "They know I'm not feeling well." "We'll still have to take them," said his driver. Henry chuffed and puffed and pulled his long line of trucks. "You can do it, Henry," encouraged his driver. But it was no use. Henry ground to a halt. Just then, Emily arrived. "Are you all right, Henry?" "No," moaned Henry. "I'm stuck." Henry's fireman uncoupled the heavy coal trucks. Emily changed tracks and then hooked up to Henry. "Oh, thank you, Emily," wished Henry. Emily and Henry puffed into the docks.
Well done, Emily, said the Fat Controller. Then he spoke to Henry. You were brave, Henry. You weren't well, but you still tried to pull the heavy trucks.
Thomas and Percy felt ashamed. "We're sorry, Henry," said Thomas. "We didn't think you were really sick," added Percy.
Go back and collect Henry's trucks straight away, said the Fat Controller sternly.
Yes, sir, whispered Thomas. Soon Henry was mended and back at work. "You're looking so much better," said Emily.
Well, they've mended me tubes, but they didn't even look at me brakes, me gauges, me squeaky wheels.
All in good time, Henry. Poor Henry. Donald and Douglas are Scottish twins. They enjoy working on the Fat Controller's railway. But sometimes they long for Scotland, their old home. One day, the Fat Controller called them to the docks.
Lord Callan's castle is finally reopening. There is to be a grand celebration tomorrow. I need you to take the banners, bunting and bagpipes to the castle. Harvey, you must load them straight away.
Yes, sir, chuffed Harvey. The twins were excited. Going to Lord Callan's castle would be like going home again. Soon, Harvey had finished loading the trucks. "Where are you going?" asked Percy.
Lord Callan's castle,
Donald proudly announced.
by Castle Loch.
"I'm glad I'm not going to Castle Loch," wheezed Percy nervously.
Scared the monster might get you, teased Douglas.
"He might," said Donald.
There's no monster. There is two. There is not. Is two. Is not. Is two.
Lord Callan's castle is in Misty Valley. Donald and Douglas were determined to get the important goods to the castle on time. They puffed proudly around the loch toward their destination.
There it is,
cried Donald.
We're almost there,
shouted Douglas. But there was trouble ahead. Trees had fallen across the line. Donald and Douglas stopped just in time. Then suddenly, there was a loud crash. The brake van had been hit by a landslide and come off the rails. They were stuck. "We could take the causeway," said Donald's driver. Douglas's driver knew the causeway was old and rickety. "It's too dangerous," he said. The twins were worried. "We'll never get to the castle now," chuffed Donald. "I'll call for help," said Douglas's driver.
Splendid outfit, sir.
The Fat Controller was trying on his present from Lord Callan when he heard the news.
Donald and Douglas, trapped by the loch,
he said.
I'll send help as soon as I can.
But the hours passed. It grew dark and cold, and still no help had come. Suddenly, the twins spotted something strange through the mist.
"What's that?"
called Donald.
"Is it the monster?"
cried Douglas.
For sure it is,"
answered Donald.
"It's not. It's us."
It was Harvey and the breakdown crane. Donald and Douglas were relieved. By morning, the lines were clear. Donald and Douglas hurried off to the castle. Lord Callan's workers were waiting to unload the trucks. Soon the castle was decorated and the opening was a great success. Lord Callan was pleased.
A splendid pair of engines. And very useful,
added the Fat Controller.
Okay,
agreed the twins. At harvest time, the air is filled with the smell of fresh fruit and vegetables. The engines happily deliver their loads to market. But one day, mist and rain swirled down Toby's line. Percy was delivering a load of fresh tomatoes. Suddenly, he felt a big bump. "Bust my buffers!" Percy cried. "What was that?" The guard put out the warning flags while Percy's driver inspected the tracks. "The earth's crumbling," he said. "We must tell the Fat Controller," decided Percy. Percy puffed back as fast as he could. "I've got important news. The tracks on Toby's line are wobbly." "Huh," huffed Gordon. "Old and wobbly, just like Toby. That's not news. Can't stop to listen to your silly chatter." "Gordon never listens to me," muttered Percy. Next, he spoke to the Fat Controller. "Sir, sir." "Not now, Percy." "Thomas, you are to collect the prize bull. He's at the farm on Toby's line." "But those tracks are wobbly," cried Percy. "They are safe enough," said the Fat Controller. "Bye, Percy." "Nobody ever listens to me." Thomas was carefully chuffing through the rain. Soon he had collected the farmer's bull and was on his way back. The rain had made the tracks more wobbly than ever. Suddenly, there was a deep rumbling sound. Thomas's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Thomas. "We're stuck!" And they were. Late that night, Thomas still hadn't returned. Percy was worried. "Thomas is in trouble," he said. Gordon and James took no notice. "Worry wheels," huffed Gordon. "Fussy funnel," said James. "Please," Percy asked his driver, "can we find Thomas?" "Right away," said his driver. Percy was nervous, but his lamp shone brightly in the dark. The tracks creaked and wobbled, but Percy pressed on. "Percy!" cried Thomas. Thomas was very happy to see his friend. "I'll have you out in no time," said Percy. Percy puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed. And finally, Thomas and his driver were free. "Oh, thank you," said Thomas. "I'm glad to be useful," smiled Percy. It was dawn before the track was cleared. Then Percy and Thomas made their way back home. "Thomas is here," whistled Percy. "Percy saved the day," said Thomas. Agreed the bull. "I'm sorry, Percy," said the Fat Controller. "We must do a better job of listening to you in future." Percy was pleased. Rheneas is a brave little engine who enjoys working in the mountains on the island of Sodor. Even though he is little, Rheneas loves feeling like a really useful engine. One day, the Fat Controller came to see Rheneas.
I have a very important job for you, he boomed.
An important job, cried Rheneas. Oh, thank you, sir.
You are to take some children up into the mountains. You must make sure they have a wonderful time and are back in time for their tea.
Yes, sir, said Rheneas, but he was worried. He wasn't sure he was good enough to make the trip special. When Rheneas arrived at the station, the children and their teacher were waiting on the platform. How can I make the children's day really special? He said to Rusty. You know the mountains better than any engine, said Rusty, but Rheneas wasn't sure his best would be exciting enough. He felt like a very little engine indeed. The Fat Controller had told Rheneas's driver to point out all the beautiful sights along the way. This is Sodor Castle, called his driver. It's very special and important. Rheneas saw the castle every day. He didn't think it was special or important. I must think of something exciting to do, he puffed to himself. This is Valley View, said his driver. And here's the viaduct. Rheneas was still unhappy. The trip didn't seem wonderful to him at all. Must be special, he puffed. Meanwhile, Rusty was working on the rocky ridgeline. Heavy rains had washed the ground from under the tracks. These lines are too bumpy and uneven, said the foreman. The tracks must be closed for repairs. Rheneas was still trying to think of something that would make the children's trip special. He didn't know that the linesman had forgotten to switch the points. Suddenly, Rheneas was on the wrong track. Oh no, this line is closed for repairs. Bust my buffers, chuffed Rheneas. Be careful, cried Rusty. The tracks are very bumpy. Rheneas whooshed down the mountain like a roller coaster. The children cheered. Rheneas puffed up the rocky ridge with all his might. His carriage clattered and bumped and bounced along behind, and the children oohed and ahed. Rheneas chuffed and puffed as hard as he could. He steamed across the trestle bridge. He was going so fast the teacher nearly lost her hat. Rheneas splashed under a waterfall. The children laughed happily, and the teacher covered her eyes. At last they could see the station. Rheneas was very tired and worried. What would the Fat Controller say? Phew, said the teacher, just in time for tea. It was the best school trip ever, cried the children. The Fat Controller wasn't cross with Rheneas. He was happy too.
You gave the children a wonderful trip. You really are a very useful engine.
Oh, thank you, sir, puffed Rheneas proudly. Rheneas didn't feel like a little engine anymore. It was a sunny day on the island of Sodor, and all the engines were working hard. Gordon was feeling very excited.
Good morning, Thomas. I look my best, and do you know why?
Why?
Because a Duke and Duchess are visiting. Sir Topham Hatt will be choosing me as their special engine.
Pah! Puffed Thomas. After Gordon had been washed and polished, he rushed away to meet the visitors. But a signal diverted Gordon into a siding. He was very upset. "I'm going to be late," he muttered. A huge engine rocketed by. Steaming pistons! Who's that? Gordon soon found out. When he arrived at the shed, the huge engine was humming quietly.
Who are you? This is Spencer. He's the fastest engine in the world.
Huh. But secretly, Gordon was impressed.
I'm the Duke and Duchess's private engine. I take them everywhere.
Quiet. There will be a party for our guests at Marron Station.
That's far away over Gordon's Hill.
You'll need to take on plenty of water, muttered Gordon. I have plenty of water, wheezed Spencer. And he raced away. I was only trying to be useful, grunted Gordon. Spencer showed the Duke and Duchess many beautiful places. But he never stopped once to take on more water. Gordon and Thomas were collecting passengers when Spencer raced through on his way to the party.
Don't forget the water. Who cares?
He'll be in trouble soon, sighed Thomas. And Spencer was. He ran out of water on Gordon's Hill.
Why didn't I listen?
Sighed Spencer. Sir Topham Hatt soon heard the news.
I'll send Gordon.
When Gordon arrived, the station master was waiting.
You need to rescue Spencer. He's stuck on the hill.
Hurry, Gordon, said his driver. Gordon was looking forward to seeing Spencer.
Run out of water?
He teased.
Yes,
Snapped Spencer.
I must have a leaky tank.
Perhaps, smiled Gordon.
But we'd better hurry. Everyone is waiting.
Gordon switched to Spencer's line and was coupled up. Then they set off.
See,
said Gordon.
we're right on time.
Spencer was embarrassed. What do you think of Spencer now? Whispered Thomas.
Too much puff and not enough steam.
Well done, Gordon, said Sir Topham Hatt. You are the fastest engine on Sodor. I know that, muttered Gordon.
what you're doing. Whatever you're doing is not what you're thinking.